John, welcome to the Modern Meeting.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me on here. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we get into how we met, I think it's important for the Modern Meeting audience to hear your story from the beginning. So let's start from the beginning.
Sweet. Yeah. Let's see. My first bet I've ever placed was when I was a senior in high school, so about a little over 4 years ago. And it was, in the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And, I remember, I was a big soccer player, athlete, in high school, all throughout school and elementary school, middle school, through my whole life. And then when that, pandemic happened, I was, not able to play any sports at all. I couldn't really do much, was stuck in the house for a while. And, that was probably the worst thing for me. And then, that summer, I remember the NBA came back with the bubble season that summer. And, my friends and I started, we didn't have anything really to do besides watch. And, we started with an offshore website where we had a bookie with some guy, a kid who was a few years older than us, where we got a credit line, $500 a week of credit. Didn't have, so you didn't have to deposit anything to make the bets. We were all stupid, high school kids. So that was probably the best thing for us, worst thing for us, but the best thing in our mind. And, we just started, betting on the NBA games, right away and, went from there.
So it was old school. You guys weren't on an app. You found an actual guy who had one of those like bullshit websites, and it was all done just through that website.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was like a super, super sketchy website. There was no, money transaction at all through the
Mm,
website. You kind of just had, currency on the website. And then at the end of every week, your currency would reset and you would, either get paid out or in most cases, pay the bookie, what you
of
owed at the
course.
end of the week. And then it would reset each week.
And were all of you guys 18, or were some of you not even 18?
Um, Probably all 17 or 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say most of us were 18, but the bookie didn't discriminate whether or not you were 18 or not. I think he had 16, 15-year-olds on the book. He didn't really care at that point. So age
Really?
age wasn't really a factor at that point. It was just if you had
Yeah.
money to pay him at the end of the week.
hmm So now, while you're making these bets, you have a $500 limit. How quickly did it start to, escalate? And what
Yes.
was your average bet when you first started?
So when I first started, probably $10, $20, and I remember my first week on the book. I think I went up like $130 probably. I was started off real hot the first week, and then I think every week beyond that for the next 5 or 6 months, I was down the whole 500 every week,
Mm,
and the bets honestly just kept increasing throughout that time. I think it would kind of be on like a week to week basis. Like I would start out the week, you know betting 10, 20, 30 on each game, but then I would continue. I would just bet on everything. So eventually, I would probably be down 100 or 200, and then at that point the bets would increase, and there was an online casino on the website too. So there was a lot of late nights in the online blackjack, online roulette, and at that point it's like you're playing a arcade game. So the unit sizes kind of go out the window there. You just keep. I vividly remember on the online blackjack there being like a rebet times two button. So if you lost a hand, you could just double your bet right away and try to win it back. And then, so I just remember, hitting that button, endlessly until I was either back even or, out of the $500 credit balance. So started out when I first started, $10, $5, $20 here and there. And then, as I started to lose more, just kind of the unit size and bet size increased kind of exponentially each week and each day.
And so if you're losing 500 a week, that's 2,000 a month. Where are you finding this money to pay this as a senior in high school?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually during so before the pandemic, while I was in high school and middle school, I actually was a youth soccer ref throughout those, probably 5 years before the pandemic hit. And obviously that didn't make me a ton of money. But then when the pandemic hit, and the government kind of had all these stimulus packages and unemployment benefits for like independent contractors that couldn't work anymore because their businesses were closed because of the pandemic. Because I was technically a independent contractor as a ref, I was able to get way too much unemployment money that I needed. So and me and my friends were able to get it as well. Like my friends weren't necessarily soccer players, but they had refed hockey or kind of done like some odd random jobs on the side. So they technically qualified, as independent contractors. And at this point, this was like the height of the pandemic, so the government wasn't really discriminating. Like they just wanted to help everyone out as much as they could. So they saw an 18-year-old who they didn't know that my parents were well off, and I was at a good school, a good high school, and for all they know, I could have been living alone and not had any money. So they were giving me, I think it was probably around like
You're getting
600,
six. Yeah, you're getting
six hundred
$600
dollars a
a
week,
week. Yeah.
$600 a week, but it was also prorated for the weeks so I didn't find out about this until, the summer, but it was prorated until, so I got back paid from when the pandemic actually started. So I think when I first got it, I think I got a deposit in my account for like $16,000 initially.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So that was, it
Oh
was
my
great at the time, but probably the
God.
worst thing that could have happened to me. And a lot of my friends got the same thing too. So it was nuts. So we got that huge, initial deposit from the unemployment, and then not only that, but it kept coming in each week. So
I mean,
that
this
was
is
honestly,
I think we're kind of we're not breaking news right now, but we're definitely turning over a rock that I
hmm
haven't heard many people talk about this, but I'm sure there's been so many people, young people, fucking baseball umpires, soccer refs, kids, you were making what, $100 a game or something, if that.
if
And then
that, yeah,
and then all of a
maybe
sudden
$50 a week.
and
Yeah.
then this pandemic hits and the system says, well, technically, and here's $600 and then here's 16,000. I mean, so many people must have took those
hmm
checks and did exactly what you did. Now,
hmm
when you like, so are you still in high school when that 16,000 hit your bank account?
Yeah. So at that point, I was a junior in high school.
A junior in high school.
Going into like, it was like end of my junior year, going into my senior year of high school.
So you weren't 18 yet.
No, you're right. Now that I think about it, I was 17. Yeah, so it was summer going into my senior year. So yeah, I wasn't even 18.
And so did your parents know about that money? Did they know that you were getting all this stimulus money and all this unemployment?
Yeah, so at that point they had like control over my bank account. Like I couldn't even log into my bank account or anything. Like I had a debit card, and I had it connected to like my Venmo and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
I couldn't log on to my bank account or anything. So I didn't really know how much money I was going to get or how much money I did get until I woke up one morning and my stepdad came in and was like, "Why did you just get a deposit for $16,000 from the state of Massachusetts? Like, what did you do?" And I was like, "Oh man."
I ref some
Uh,
games, bro.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
oh
Like,
my God.
so, yeah,
So,
looking back on it, that was probably the worst thing. That definitely was like the catalyst to it becoming a problem early on, just because
yeah,
I had all this money and nothing to spend it on, and $500 was nothing to me at that
of
point.
course, of
I was a
course, of course.
stupid high
So,
schooler.
yeah, so take me. So what happens once it's senior year? I'm assuming you still have that money by the time school started, or how quickly did you go through that 16,000?
Um, I think by winter break of my senior year of high school. So like I'd say around New Year's was when I ran out of that money.
Yeah, and I
So
obviously hate to assume that you did, but I'm guessing that you
no, I
did.
did. No, yeah. So honestly, I even if I kept losing $500 every week, which I was for a good amount of time, I probably would have been fine. But I remember like late in the football season that year, so I think it was probably late November, early December. There was like one week where it got to like Saturday night or Sunday morning, and I was done. Like I was down 500, and I needed to bet more so bad. And so I texted my bookie and I was like, is there a way for you to like increase my credit line? Like, can you add more credit to my account? And I remember he responded immediately and was like, yeah, how much do you want? And I was like, oh, I'll guess I'll take 500 more.
Mm,
And so I think I probably ended up down 1,000, that week. And then probably the next week, I remember the next week, probably I think the same thing ended up happening. I remember the last the last week where before I lost everything, I think I ended up being down like just under 3,000 on the
mm,
on the website on my account there. So I had extended my credit line, several times to get to that point. And I remember I don't know if he would have I don't know how far he would have let me go, but then I think that week it was like really bad. I was down like 2,000 probably, halfway through the week. And I remember too, because he was feeding me like free play. Like he kept
of
giving
course.
me bonus bets and free play to try to win it back. And then I, wouldn't obviously and kept just getting worse. And then eventually he actually did say, he was like, is there a point where you want me to cut you off and like not extend your balance anymore? And I was like, yeah, if I get to 3,000 and lose it all, then you can stop. So that week I got to 3,000 and I think that was basically all my money at that point.
Mm. Now, was this guy your friend, or is he just like a friend of a friend, or not even
He
that?
was he was my older brother's friend.
Your older brother's friend.
hmm
Okay.
So he was
And
like 3 years older than me.
okay. So and he was the guy, or was he like the middleman for a guy?
He was the middle at that point. He was the middleman for a
Okay.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because this is also, so this is 2020, 2021. This is
hmm
pre all the sports books exploding
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much.
hmm
So this
Yeah.
was your this so yeah, so this is what you this was your option. So now you mentioned, you're a soccer ref. You end up playing Division 1 soccer at Holy Cross, which we'll get to. But so talk to me about what is going through your head as you're waking up as a high school senior and you're going to class and you're sitting in the cafeteria and you're just a regular kid, but you have this debt hanging over your head every week. Like, was it a problem, or did you realize that it was a problem at this point, or were you just kind of playing with house money with the COVID money?
Um, I'd say it was a little bit of both. Like I knew it was getting out of control, but there was always a little thought in the back of my mind that was like, oh, like I didn't really deserve this money. I didn't really earn this money. So if I lose it, then it's not, the end of the world. But
Absolutely.
honestly, like I wasn't even thinking about it at the time though. Like while I was at school, all I was doing was thinking about the next bet or, watching a game on my phone in class or like, sneaking off to the bathroom to play online blackjack or anything. So like even while I was at school, like there was never any like downtime for me from doing it. It was always just how am I going to make it back this week? How am I going to get back even? How am I going to make back the 500 I lost last week? Like there was never any downtime for me at school, like where I was away from it, where I had to like put my phone away, put my laptop away and just like think about it. It was always just like, what am I going to do next to make up for what I've lost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total
Mm.
sense. And did uh did your parents notice when the balance started getting lower and lower?
Yeah. So I remember like late in the summer, after and I tried to so the other thing was like if you say you were down 500 one week, you wouldn't necessarily just Venmo $500 to the bookie right away. Like if say someone else on the book was up $200, he would have you send them $200 and then send
Right.
the rest to him. So
Yeah,
like
'cause yeah, 'cause he's fucking lazy, right, okay.
exactly, yeah, yeah, exactly. So as much as little work for him as possible.
Yeah,
So that actually I kind of had used that to my advantage too. So it wasn't like there was like one $500 Venmo going out of my account every week. It was like, and even if there was a week where I had to send him like $400, I would send him like one that was like $213 and then like 187. So like I tried to make the numbers like super
yeah.
weird and like uneven so that my parents couldn't see like a pattern on my account. So like
And then
it
you're making an excuse for each transaction? Like,
so
what
like
was for?
yeah, so for a while they didn't ask me just because I think the I was able to break up the transactions enough that they weren't super, jumping out at them. But then eventually, like, I remember like late in the summer, my mom like came into my room one day and was like, "What are these two Venmos?" Like one of them was like 350, and there was like one for like 140, like for 1 week. And she was like, "What the hell are you spending your money on? Like, what the fuck is going on?" And I was like, just like doing stuff with my friends, like gambling a little bit and whatever. Just kind of like downplayed it a little bit and kind of slid in like gambling a little bit there.
Mhm.
And she was like, she honestly didn't really get on my case that much, but she was like, well, why are you gambling? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I remember I said these exact words. I was like, I have it covered. Don't worry. Like, I'll handle it. Don't worry.
Of course, yeah,
And she
don't
just
worry.
left. She just left my room. And so then that was the last time she said anything to me about it until I basically lost all my money,
Mm,
like a few months later. So,
mm.
and there was also like there was definitely a week or two here and there where I would go up. So like there was like I say I was down 500 almost every week, which I was, but there was definitely a few weeks where I would go up and then, I would just like keep that money, in my Venmo account so that, because I knew deep down that I was just going to lose it all the next week. So I would just like keep it in my Venmo account and then be able to pay it out the next week without, having any transaction on my bank account. So like,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So like I definitely, as it got to a bad point, like a few months in, like I knew that my parents sort of knew what was going on, but I tried my best to try to keep it under wraps.
yeah. And so, obviously, you did a good job of leading that double life because you get into Holy Cross. That's a tough school academically, I'm assuming. So talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you are you just that fucking smart? Or like, how are you betting blackjack in the bathroom while also getting good enough grades to go to Holy Cross?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about gambling addiction is like you can be in the thick of gambling and be doing it all day and if everything else is going well in your life, like no one will really know.
Mhm.
Like like I had gotten super good grades, up until my junior year. And then with the pandemic and, hybrid school and online school, like they definitely made it pretty easy on us. And I, found ways to, you know, use online websites to cheat a little bit, on online class. And I remember like I went to a private school in high school for my junior and senior year, and it was pretty prestigious academically, and so they kind of assumed the best of all the students. Like we had a during the pandemic and after the pandemic, we had there was a lot of times where I would have tests and like exams and quizzes, from my house, like on my laptop, and they just kind of assumed that we were good students and we weren't gonna cheat, but like that was the best thing for me because I was just like, oh, I can just look up all the answers and I don't have to do any homework. I don't have to study. I can just get by without really doing anything and just gamble all day and not have to study. And at that point, so I committed to Holy Cross the summer going into my senior year. So like honestly kind of before so it was while
Oh,
I
so
was gambling,
right.
but before it had really become a problem. So like everything was I was kind of set with everything and like obviously I still had to get into the school, but like I was committed for soccer. Like it was I was kind of a shoo-in at that point. So I had everything set up for me to go to Holy Cross and play soccer. So that was another thing too that kind of contributed. Like I kind of just had to get by my senior year. I didn't really have to, um, you know, be as, prestigious as I
Yeah.
thought I had to be before,
Well, that's the other part of it
Mm,
too that I didn't even take in
mm.
consideration. Like, what is the gambling addiction your senior year? How does that affect your ability to perform at a high level playing soccer?
I mean, the thing is, it didn't really affect anything. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't, like, I was so motivated. I was still like, that is the one thing. Like, I still stayed super motivated with soccer and with my physical, fitness and everything. But I was doing everything while still gambling. Like, I was on a really good, club soccer team my senior year, and I would drive to soccer practice. I would be on my phone the whole ride looking at bets, and then the whole soccer practice be thinking about, what football game was on and what I was going to do. And I could not like get to my phone quick enough after
Mm.
soccer practice to check and see the score of all the games that I had bet on. And even like I was, working out every day too, like lifting and running, whatever. But like in between sets, I was on my phone, checking scores, checking, going on the casino, checking everything. So like I was so committed to being a good athlete while also being so committed to gambling that like I was able to just have them coincide perfectly with each other. That
Yeah.
it didn't really affect my soccer or fitness, and it didn't, and playing soccer and working out didn't affect my gambling.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes sense. And it definitely, once again, it's like it's the hidden addiction. It's like,
Hmm.
if you have the answers for your parents and you're crushing it in school, you're crushing it in sports, like who are they to bust your balls, right? Like everything seems fine. He's fine. It's John. He's fine.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I was definitely a little cocky in that aspect. Like if they tried to, you know, confront me about something, I'd be like, come on, like I have straight A's. I've gotten straight A's my whole life. I have a good ACT score. I'm committed D1 soccer. Like get off my back. Like I got to cover.
Right, right. Oh, it's not to
It's
make light of
crazy.
it, but it's just
No, it's
fucking
true.
nuts.
Yeah.
So that 16,000 runs out. It's around
Mm.
the new year. Take us how did things escalate senior year into like your first year of college?
Yeah, so interesting actually. So when everything ran out, um, January of my senior year, that was when I first kind of realized that I had an issue, like a problem, and like confronted it because I had no money left to gamble. So it was the first time where I really had to like reflect on everything that had happened. And I was like, yeah, I definitely have a problem. And my parents were obviously on my case about me losing all my money. And, so that was the first time where I, went to, Gamblers Anonymous meeting. Like that was so January of my senior year, where it wasn't really my decision. It was kind of like I like had talked to, I had like came to my parents and was like, I lost all this money. Like I definitely have a gambling problem. Like I need to do something about it. So we kind of researched together. And at that point, Gamblers Anonymous was only online because there was no in-person meetings because of COVID. So I remember hopping on like a online meeting in California. Um, and I was pretty consistent with it for like a few months. And I was talking to a guy that was like sort of my sponsor, but we weren't like doing the steps or anything, but I was just talking to him every day, like checking in with him about not gambling, but like I hated it. Like I hated going to the meetings. I hated doing it all. I didn't really have a choice because my parents were making me go, and I didn't have access to any money at that point. Like once I ran out of money, I got a job at CVS as like a just like a retail worker to try to make some money because I had no money. But
That was my
obviously,
first job,
oh, let's go.
CVS.
So yeah, that's awesome. But so like I was making some money, but it was all going to an account run by my parents. I think they like took my debit card from me. Like I had no ability to spend any money. So like yeah, I wasn't gambling for a few months, but also um I wasn't like actively doing anything to better myself. I just like couldn't gamble. So I was like just kind of doing whatever they asked me. But then um so I did that for like a few months, and then at the start of the summer, so it was the summer going into my freshman year of college. Uh, one of a kid that was my age that I was like kind of friends with in high school. He had opened up a book, so he had become a bookie, and so I had got an account on his book. You know, obviously this was without my parents knowing, and so I was just like, oh yeah, like I'll get an account on his book. I won't lose any money. I'll keep the money in my Venmo, whatever I win or lose, so I can just pay out, you know, from my Venmo without my parents seeing anything in my bank account. So I actually did that for like a few weeks, and then eventually like had one bad week where I lost, you know, 600, $700, and I was like, oh shit, like what am I gonna do? So I just, I kind of just like, I just like sent the money from my bank account and just like hoped that my parents wouldn't see it. They just like wouldn't see the transaction. So I like
Yeah.
sent all this money and then just like basically was just like waiting for a week for them to confront me about it. And then they eventually did, and it was like a whole thing, like
Yeah.
whatever, like you have to go to the meeting, tell everyone that you relapsed, whatever, and that was just a whole shit show. And and yeah, so that was horrible. And then you know I so then eventually I had stopped gambling going like at when I went to Holy Cross as a freshman, I had stopped gambling for probably like 2 months
Mm-hmm.
because they confronted me about that. It was a whole blow up, whatever, and I was able to stop, or I had to stop basically. But then when I got to Holy Cross, I was still I was able to, I went back onto the unemployment thing because it was still like the COVID thing. So I was still actually able to get money from the unemployment, the same independent contractor BS that I was doing. Like I was still able to get money from that,
Holy
even though I
shit.
was at college. Like they had no idea I was at school. So they were still able to send me money. And I was able to, instead of having that money sent to my bank account, like a direct deposit to my bank account, I was able to get like a prepaid debit card from the state of Massachusetts and just have them put money on that. So then once I got that, then you know I texted my friend or my you know the kid from high school in my grade that had the book, and I was like, let me hop on the book, let me get back on the book, whatever. So I basically got back into it, you know, at the start of my freshman year, and you know didn't stop until you know 5 months ago.
Mm. So now, when you have that quote unquote shit show with your family, and,
Mm.
are you at all remorseful, or are you just kind of so, you know, just the disease that just has a hold of you that you just kind of don't care?
No, I was definitely remorseful. Like I wanted to kill myself for a few weeks. Like I was like
Mm,
so like all I could think about was like how stupid I had been, like how crazy it was that I had all this money and just completely had nothing to show for it, and how I just had, you know, pissed it all away. And you know, I was at that point I was still kind of wrapped up in the disease. Like I still wanted to gamble more, but
sure.
when I wasn't gambling and I wasn't thinking about gambling just because I didn't have the ability to do it, all it was remorse in my head. Like how the fuck did I do this? Like what is going on? What am I gonna do? Like whatever. Every single like negative thought that I could have had about myself, I did, and I just like didn't even want to live anymore if I couldn't gamble. You know, like if I couldn't, like I was still convinced that if I could gamble more, then I'd be able to win it all back. But if I couldn't gamble, then I didn't really want to do anything else. You know.
Mm. So you're having that thought, even though, because the thing about GA for me is that I went to a GA meeting once in like 2009. Everything went in one ear and out the other, and I never went back. But if you were consistently going to GA meetings and everything that was said in those books, yet you still thought you could win,
Hmm.
explain that. Like, did you just think that the books like were just kind of, and like all the stories you're hearing, like how do you explain how, by being in those meetings, reading what you read, hearing what you heard, but then still going out and being like, I could still turn this around and win.
Yeah, I think it was two things. One, the first thing was the meeting that I would go to, it was all old guys. So it was
Hmm.
all guys in like their 60s, 70s that never online bet or anything. All they did was like go to the casino or horse track, whatever. So I didn't really think I could relate to them as much, and I didn't really try to relate to
Hmm.
them. So I would just like show up to the meeting and be counting down the clock the whole time
Yeah.
to finish. And I would speak, but like I wouldn't really say much. And then the other thing also I think just goes back to like my cockiness and arrogance that I had for myself. Like I was so successful and in all other aspects of my life and like was able to just always just figure stuff out on my own that like I was like, oh, if I could, go to Holy Cross as a D1 athlete on my own without really help from anyone else. Like I never asked, like I didn't have like a trainer or like I didn't have, my parents never helped me out with my homework or like studying, whatever. I kind of just was wired to do it on my own and get shit done on my own. So I was like, oh, if I could do that on my own, then obviously I can figure out gambling and figure out a way to make it profitable and be successful, you know?
Listen, that's a that's a really good answer. I mean, that's really
hmm
logical. I mean,
hmm
if you're 19, 20 years old, like I get it. I get it,
hmm
right? It's not like you were in a gutter. Like
hmm
you're crushing every other area of life,
Exactly. Like
you
everything
know?
in my life was perfect besides the gambling. So I was like, why can't the gambling be perfect? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, so you mentioned that it pretty much from, once you got that prepaid debit card until 5 months ago, just kind of sum up what the end of your freshman year, sophomore, junior year were like before you and I met. Bring us up to that point before you and I met.
Yeah. So yeah. So that for those 4 years, it was kind of I kind of did everything. Like it was bookie. Like I had before I turned 21, I probably had like two or three different bookies um throughout my those 3 years of college. And at this point too, my parents still had access to my bank account for the first 2 year or like year and a half when I was at school. And so I was like trying to, finagle ways. I kind of got lucky in a lot of instances where I would like get on a book, like get a new bookie and then like win a lot the first like 2 weeks. So I just have all this like money to play with, like in my Venmo account or whatever, so that it was money that I had and my parents couldn't see. So then I could just use that to gamble. Um, and there was a lot of times where I had would go on a book, lose a lot of money and not be able to pay it and just wouldn't pay. I just wouldn't be able to pay. And obviously these are all people that I knew, so I couldn't just like go off the face of the earth. I would just be like, hey, sorry, I can't pay. Like I'll get you eventually. So then I would have to wait, get on another bookie and wait until I won money from that bookie and then pay the other bookie that I still owed money. So it was kind of just like this endless cycle. And then eventually it got to the point where I was like my one of my best friends from high school was my bookie. And this was my sophomore year of college. And so he at this point he kind of knew that I was not necessarily that I had a super bad problem, but just that I was like I would bet a lot of money. And I'm sure that's why he wanted me on his book. But um so I so it was kind of like a similar instance where like I originally like I won a lot of money on his book and then had money to play with and then lost that all eventually. And then I remember losing like I was like down like 1,000 1 week and I couldn't like I had the money in my bank account, but my parents would see it. So I remember telling him like, yeah, just give me a few days, like I'll get it to you. So then I called my mom, like I think it was on the Monday after that week. I called my mom and was like, hey, like I had a bad weekend, like I gambled again. Like she didn't know that I was gambling this whole time. She thought I hadn't gambled in a while. So I was like, I've been doing so well, like I didn't, I haven't been gambling, but like I just had a bad weekend this weekend. Like and I lost a lot of money. Like I don't know what to do. And she was like, what are, like, we talked for a while and so then I remember I told her that I had talked to the guy. So like when I first started going to GA, this guy kind of took me under his wing, like not really as a sponsor, but just like to check in every day to make sure I wasn't gambling. So I hadn't talked to him in years and I didn't talk to him, but I told my mom, I was like, I talked to Steven, I talked to this guy and he was like,
Mm.
he told me that I'm never going to get better if I don't have control of my own money.
Oh, Jesus
If I
Christ.
don't have control over my own finances. So I was like, if he was like, I told her, I was like, he said like, if you can't control your own money, you're never going to be able to stop because you're going to want to get back even, whatever. So I eventually convinced my mom to let me have all my money again.
Wow.
And so that was the fall of my sophomore year. And so then from then on, obviously it was horrible. Like I worked, I worked jobs at school. I had like internships while I was at school. Like I had worked like part-time internships while I was playing soccer just so that I could make money to gamble. So like my schedule was insane. Like, and I still got perfect grades, was like playing on the soccer team, working internships, all so that I could have money to gamble and basically just lost, would get paid on Friday for my internship and then just lose it all, and just have to live, So that I
Wait,
basically did. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, what does your unit look like sophomore, junior year of college? Like, what are you betting now at this point? What are you losing per week? What are you betting per game?
Um, it was definitely it was definitely like I said before, like definitely a week to week basis. Like it depended on how much money I had that week, but like probably around $100 a game,
Yeah.
to start out. And then if I lost $200 a game and then 300, 400, like, and then it got to a point, there was one point in the spring of my sophomore year where I think that was when I worked my first, part-time internship at like a small accounting firm in Worcester. And I probably made like $12,000 that semester from that internship and basically lost it all like throughout that, like I lost it all as I made it, as I made it. And then I remember like towards the end of the semester, I went on a huge run and basically made it all back and had like $12,000. So at this point, I had kind of exhausted all my options as like for bookies, and I was using this website called My Bookie, which is
Mm.
like just like an offshore website where you actually do have to deposit money, but it's like an offshore, unregulated. So I remember having like $15,000 in that account, and I think I lost that in like 3 or 4 days. Like, because at that point my unit size was like 300, $400, and I remember like it got to the point where I think I had like $10,000 in it. Like I lost 5,000, had $10,000, and I went to a Celtics game with, I think it was my girlfriend at the time. It might have been my brother. I went to a Celtics game and I lost $5,000 on the Celtics game. And it wasn't even one bet either. It was like, I bet like 400 on like the first quarter and then that lost and then 800 on the next. And then like had money on like the first half spread and just like, I don't think I hit one bet the whole game and just kept snowballing until I lost everything that one night, which was insane. So then I went from like literally the happiest I've ever been, like 4 days, because oh my God, like this is my big break. Like I won everything back that I made during the internship. Like I have money for the rest of college, and then just lost it all within, less than a week. So it was pretty insane.
Yeah. I mean, I got to go back to that conversation with your mom because, you know, it just brought me back to all the times that I lied and manipulated someone into giving
Hmm.
me money or loaning me money. Before we get into your amazing, you know, story of recovery, looking back on it now, like just take us into your brain of when you're just telling this ridiculous 100% like bold-faced lie to your mother, probably the person you love more than anyone in the
Hmm.
world. What was that like? And like, what was it like once she sent you the money? Like, was it relief or was it guilt? Like take us through it.
Oh yeah, it wasn't the first time that I had completely lied to her or like a family member's face, and it wasn't the last time that I did it. And I'll tell you, like, it sucks to say, but there was no guilt whatsoever at the time. Like, I had no guilt, no remorse. All I cared about was getting money to gamble or getting money to pay people off or getting money to gamble. That was the only thing, running my mind at the time. So, like, once she finally sent me the money from my account so I could open my own account, like, it was the biggest relief ever. Like I was so relieved that I had that weight off my shoulder of having to pay my friend back, and there was no other weight on my shoulder that like, oh, I just lied straight up to my mom just so I could gamble more. Like that thought or guilt was non-existent at that point, and honestly wasn't. I had no guilt or really anything until I actually started getting help 5 months ago, or whatever. But
Wow.
another thing I didn't mention was and I don't know if you were going to ask me about this, but when I finally turned 21, my junior year of So it was the second semester of my junior year of college. And so at that point, I had just been using bookies and like kind of had to like jump around, like figure stuff out to make things work. But then once I turned 21 and gambling was legal in Massachusetts, like it was literally like Christmas morning, like opening, downloading all those. I think I downloaded like 6 or 7 apps on my 21st birthday and got bonus bets from all of them. Like it was insane. And I think I went on like a crazy run those first few months just because I had so many bonus bets and everything. Like I would probably went up like 5,000, $10,000 and was just like on a crazy roll and was obviously the worst thing that could have happened to me because then I was just active on all those legal sites that like it's so easy to just deposit more money. So like even though I went up a shit ton right as I turned 21, like I was never gonna stop until I lost it all.
Mm. And because I knew some of your story, like I
Hmm.
know that at some point you ended up, you know, doing some really sketchy stuff in order to get money.
Hmm.
Was that like junior year? When did that, I mean, we don't have to get into details, but just kind of talk about like what it was like in your brain once you started like committing illegal acts essentially to
Hmm.
fund the gambling.
Yeah, so that happened, so that actually happened, winter of my senior year of college, all the way through my last semester of college. And, I kind of had, I got a lot of lucky breaks, my junior and first semester of my senior year where there was a lot of times where I won a shit ton of money off a crazy bet. Like I think the most I won, I hit like a futures bet for like $11,000 the
Wow.
summer going into my senior year, which so like I was able to fund my gambling from other gambling for, from the time I turned 21 up until the winter of my senior year. Like granted I was still losing like all the money, but I was getting all the money from prior gambling wins if that makes sense. And eventually lost it all, but then and I was also working jobs at school. So like I had sources of income and previous gambling winnings that I was just able to use and kind of use up. And until, it got to, the winter of my senior year where I was home for the winter, not working, I wasn't working a job obviously at school because I was home and I ran out of money. And, that's when I kind of turn to stealing and lying and cheating, whatever, to get money. And once I kind of like turned that corner, like there was no going back because I did it once or did it twice, and it was easy, and so I just kept doing it without even thought. Like there was no remorse, no like, wow, you just committed a crime. Like there was nothing in my head. It was just, yeah, I got money to gamble, and I'm gonna use it, and if I lose it all, if I lose this money, then I have an easy outlet to get more money because I can just commit, illegal acts, So
Yeah.
there was no thought process whatsoever. It was just how do I get money to gamble more?
Hmm. So I just looked up on my phone. So it was January when um a friend of your mom, who I went to high school with, shout out to, I'm sure she doesn't mind. Shout out to Julie, aka Juder. I get a message from her. She says, hey, listen to the podcast, because the podcast is, it started in November. This is January. So podcast was 3 months in. Long story short, she says that I have a friend who her son has a gambling problem. Um, and then I think I had one conversation with your stepdad, and then we started talking.
Hmm.
And so from what I could tell, based on our conversations, if I had a gun to my head, is he still gambling? I would have said yeah. But I could I could see and feel that like you definitely uh, you reminded me of me towards the end where it's like you knew it wasn't sustainable, right? But
Hmm.
so I would love to know cuz what was your clean date? What's your last day you
My
bet?
clean date is May 19th of
Right.
this
So
year.
so January, February, March, April. So you had from the moment we talked until you finally stopped, it was about 5 months. And I want to say we stopped talking right around when you went. Did you go to Mexico or something?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that was like March.
That was March, yeah. So we talked for 2 months, 3
Yeah.
months maybe.
So now talk about what was actually happening while you and I were, we probably talked
Mhm.
once or twice a week for, what was actually happening during those conversations?
Yeah, so actually so the first, like, couple weeks when so I think we first started talking when I was still home from
Yes.
winter I went on winter break. So, like, that week or 2, and then my first week at school, I actually wasn't gambling, and not honestly because I didn't want to, just because I didn't really have money. And when I was at home, like, that was after, my parents had, caught me gambling and, doing sketchy shit. So, like, I didn't want to risk it there.
Mm,
So I was talking to you, like, acting like I was, like, doing great, and, not get like doing great because I wasn't gambling, but deep down I was just, like, trying to figure out how I could get to gamble again. And it's funny that you mentioned my trip to Cancun, because that was, like, heavy on my mind when I went back to school, because I went back to school with no money, and I wanted to go on spring break with my friends. Like, we had talked about going to Cancun. Like, we hadn't booked it yet, but I wanted to go
mm.
on spring break. And I knew at that point my parents weren't going to help me out because of obviously. So I was good for the first, like, 2 weeks. And then I think it was like the NFL. Um, it was like I think it was the divisional round of the playoffs. So it was like late January maybe. Um, and I got like a bonus bet on,
And
like, I remember.
I can remember talking to you during this. We were
Yeah,
talking about
exactly.
the
And I was telling
playoffs.
you, oh, I was like, no, like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to bet on it. Like, I don't even want to do whatever. What I was like, but I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out anyway. So I got like a $25 bonus bet on Caesars, and I hit a parlay to win $1,600
Yeah.
that weekend.
Fucking
And
A.
that was, like, more than enough for me to be able to go on spring break.
Of
And
course.
it was enough for me to go on spring break and continue to gamble. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, my
Well,
parents don't think I'm gambling. I'm talking to Adam. He doesn't think I'm gambling, and I just have this free money that I can use. So
well,
from then on,
I thought you might have been gambling, but no,
yeah, and like, deep down, I kind of knew that you kind of knew.
yeah,
I was kind of like this weird, like, I was like, he probably knows that I'm
yeah,
gambling. Like, he's a gambler. He knows that I'm bullshitting him. But I
yep.
was like, ah, whatever.
But no, and here's the thing, and here's the thing that's so fucked up is that
Mm,
in your mind you're like, I need money to go to Cancun. And
mhm,
then and this is why the gambling gods are so cruel. They give you that win. So now subconsciously
mhm,
you're associating this with like, see, I did something good with it. I used some of that money that I won to go hang
mhm,
out with my friends on spring break. So it's like, fuck,
mhm,
man, that's just but so and I will take no offense to this, but I am curious. The conversations that we had in like January, February, I think we fell off like right around March.
mhm.
But so the conversations that we were having, did it like did it do anything, or was I just another person that was just fucking lecturing you? Be honest.
It definitely did. It definitely did something at first, like when we
Mhm.
first started talking, because when we first started talking, that was after everything had blown up. Like, not just the gambling, but the stealing had blown up with my family. So, like, at that point, it was kind of the first time where I was like, holy shit, like, this is a problem. Like, I need to fucking get my shit together, or I'm gonna go to jail or get killed. So the first few conversations that we had were super useful, and, like, hearing your story and knowing that you could relate to me, and especially the fact that, like, you had, kind of gotten help, but then, gone back to it, and kind of similar to me, like, realize it was an issue and stop for a little bit, but then go back into it. So I definitely related a lot to what you were saying. But then as soon as I got back to school and all I cared about was getting money for spring break, at that point I was just, like, checked out, and I was like, oh, I'll just tell this guy whatever he wants to hear, and then just figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And then at that point, like, once I won that huge bet, I was so back into it that I didn't care about anything anymore.
Mm.
I like the thought that my parents caught me gambling and stealing, like, did not think about that once I had that money to gamble, because that's all I was thinking about at that point.
Yeah. And I can remember like, in like March, April, May, June, like I can remember every once in a while I would see like you looked at like a modern meeting story or
Mm,
something and I'd be like, "Oh, that's John. Like hope he's doing good." But like I didn't
mm,
want to reach out because I figured,
mm,
it is what it is. but then I'm dying. I can't. I mean, I'm so excited because I want to hear how did you stop? How what like
Yeah.
so take us to. I'm assuming there was some type of rock bottom. There was some
Mm,
type of last thing that I have no idea what happened. So I'm right here with the audience. Like,
mm.
tell us what led to you finally surrendering.
Yeah, I mean, so honestly, the rock bottom, like I had a lot of rock bottoms from a financial perspective and emotional perspective, but I think the rock bottom for me was I remember right before I left for spring break, my parents are divorced and remarried, and my dad lives in Maryland with my stepmom. And I remember like my dad like texted me one day. He was like, "Hey, like me and Heidi, my stepmom, are gonna come up to Holy Cross like for dinner, and your mom and Jeff, my stepdad, are gonna come too, just so we can like talk and talk about like your plans for after you graduate." And at that point, I was like obviously full blown gambling and didn't really care about anything else. So I was like, oh, okay, like sure, they just want to hear about like whatever I'm doing, whatever. So we went to we were going to dinner, like the five of us, and we were like what we were in like the center of Worcester. And then all of a sudden, instead of going to the restaurant, we like walked to my stepdad's office, his like work office, and like just like sat down in the lobby of like his office, like, and they were like the four of them were like sitting around me, like it was like a intervention sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like I thought we were just going to dinner, like to talk about. And at that point, like they just laid everything down on me and said, like, "You've done this, you've stole from your family, you've done gambled, lost all your money." Like, and at that point, like they were like, "Yeah," like, and at this point, I had a job lined up um for after I graduated, but I don't start till October. So like I was gonna stay at home for that summer, and they basically said like at that point like neither of them wanted me to stay with them. Like they didn't, and I wouldn't want me either. Like I was a complete degenerate liar, like sociopath.
Sure.
So like they were like, you can stay. My mom was like, you should stay with your dad. My dad was like, you should stay with your mom. But both of them were like, if you want to stay with us, we are having full control of all your finances. You're getting a job. Like before you even start your full time job, you're going to get a job at home and you're going to go to GA meetings and you can't gamble. Like if you gamble once, we're kicking you out of the house basically. And so at that point, I was like, holy shit. Like I did not think it would ever get to this point where like they are threatening to kick me out of the house or like not give me a place to live if I gamble. And
And what credit to them, for all of them to come together. You know what I
mhm.
mean? Because
Oh
I
yeah.
like what an amazing like united front.
Hmm.
Who knows? I don't know them. I don't know what your parents are divorced or whatever. But the fact that
Hmm.
they all came together for you
Hmm.
to I mean I mean so awesome for the four of them.
Oh yeah, it was the best thing. I mean, obviously I hated it at the time, but it was the best thing
Yeah,
that ever happened to me. And then so then knowing that that was going to happen as soon as I graduated, like those last few months were kind of like my last hurrah for
sure.
gambling. Sort of, I was like, all right, well, like I'm not gonna be able to gamble once I graduate, so like I might as well just do it up until then. And like I still was gambling, stealing, doing sketchy shit. So like I didn't get any better after hearing that. So like it's hard to say it's my rock bottom because I didn't like make a change immediately,
Hmm.
but I knew that I was gonna have to make a change. So then as soon as I got back, or as soon as I graduated and got back, like I started going to GA meetings, got some like clean time. Like I think even after like a week of not gambling and going to GA, I was like, holy shit, like my life is so much better. And it's so nice to just like do other things and work out and talk to my girlfriend and play with my little sister without having this constant stress of like losing money in the back of my mind. And like knowing that like what I was doing was making people in my life happy too. Like, because for 4 years, all I cared about was myself and how I could be better for myself and get money for myself. But then finally, like stopping gambling and getting help for myself, like opened my mind to be like, oh, like these people really just want the best for me. So it's kind of cool to finally appreciate that and appreciate, oh yeah, they just want me to do well in life. Like, so they did this out of the goodness of their heart, and it's making me such a better person and making me have such a better life. So since since May 19th, I've been going to GA meetings every week, have a sponsor, started working the steps. I started going to church with my grandma, to get that connection with my higher power. So yeah, I mean, life, it was kind of crazy how steep I dropped off in my life, like how quickly my life went to shit immediately, but how quickly I was able to just like rebound and how much better my life has got these past few months, like so quickly, just because I haven't been gambling and because I've been getting help for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And so I gotta ask, like, specifically, like, in that first week, what clicked? What is there anything specific that either someone said or you read in the literature and it just kinda hit you like a ton of bricks? Like, what happened? Why did it stick this time?
Honestly, like the thing is like the stuff in the literature had stuck with me before, like everything that I had heard before, I knew it was right and I knew that it applied to me. I just didn't want to do it. Like I was like, why the fuck do I want to do it? Like I'd rather just gamble and have fun.
Mm.
So then once I just flipped the switch in my mind, like I'm a very like motivated and disciplined person when I want to be. So like once I put my mind to something, I'm confident that I can do it. So once I flipped the switch in my mind where I was like, okay, like I just can't gamble anymore. Like I just can't do it. Like I want to live in my house for the summer until I move out when I start my job. And my girlfriend had kind of given me the same, I guess like ultimatum sort of like, hey, like I'm glad you're getting help, but like for us to stay together, you can't be gambling and you need to keep getting help. So like that was even more motivation for me to, so I was like, all right. So I basically just like immediately just like flipped the switch in my mind. I was like, all right, just can't gamble anymore. Just can't do it. Have to do other stuff. And I'm going to commit myself to recovery so that I can stay clean and not gamble in the future when I do have a lot of money coming in.
So that I mean, that's my next question. And this is a question that, people in recovery are probably gonna be like, "Adam, why did you ask him that?" But, like, any parent who's listening right now is like, ask him this. So here's the question. You're about to start a new job. You're about to move to Boston. You're gonna be with friends who gamble. I'm assuming you have control of your own bank account. What is John's plan? Because, God bless you, you're 100 and something days into this, but what's John's plan in order to stay away from a bet and ultimately do this for him? Because,
Hmm.
you don't need your parents' house anymore, and, you could always find another girlfriend who doesn't know about your addiction. Yeah, I'm just you know what I mean? I'm laying it all on the
Yeah,
table,
no, it's true. It's
and this
completely
is like
true. Hmm.
this is what people this is what's gonna help people, and this is what's gonna help
Hmm.
you, like, talking this out. So, like, what's your plan?
Yeah, that's no, it's definitely a great question. It's and something I've thought about a lot. So the good thing is so I do have control over my own bank account, but my mom has my login to like
Yes.
my bank account. So like she can, when I first got home, she was checking every day,
Right.
my bank transaction, whatever. And as I've gotten better, she checks it rarely, but just knowing that she can check at any time, and even even though I'm not going to be financially dependent on them, if I were to gamble and just knowing that they would know after all the good work I've done and after all I've put them through from gambling, like it would just like eat me away knowing that they would know. So like when I was, like a couple of weeks ago, I think my mom was like asking if, she still wanted me, if I still wanted her to, have my login when I moved out. And I was like, yeah, like I know you're not going to be checking it a lot and like checking it every day, but just knowing that if I were to gamble, that you would see it eventually, like that in itself will prevent me from doing anything stupid.
Yeah, and
Because
there's no
at
shame
this
in
point,
that.
yeah, and at this
Yeah.
point, like I'm clear-minded enough to like not want to put her through that again and put my family through that again, knowing, and I don't want to put myself through it, but I also know what I've done to them emotionally and you know psychologically from what I've done from gambling, that I don't want them to know, like I don't want them to see that I'm gambling if I was to gamble again. Second point, I love my girlfriend. I want to be with my girlfriend forever. And like, it is an interesting, like, it's an interesting point to raise. Like, oh, just get another girlfriend that doesn't know and you'll be perfectly fine. You can just live this other life. But like, I'm so glad that my girlfriend has stayed with me through this time that I've like gotten myself better, and I want to continue to make myself better for me, but also to stay with her because I know she'll hold me accountable. So that's another reason. And two, and I mean, third point, like the last point is also like this is the first time in my life where I have like bills to pay, like, and I have to like pay rent and like pay for utilities and shit. Like while I was at school, I was making money from internships and shit and had no responsibility whatsoever to do anything. Like
Zero
my
zero overhead.
Exactly. Yeah. So like all this money that I was making was just like house money that I could do whatever I want with. And if I lost it all, nothing was going to change. Like I was still going to be at school, still going to do whatever. So like now, like the stakes are so much higher that like if I, if I were to gamble again and lose my rent money, then what am I going to do? There's no other option. So like, I think those three things are like keeping me grounded, keeping me in place where I'm in a good spot. And also just like I enjoy going to the GA meetings now. I enjoy talking to my sponsor. I enjoy hearing about what other people in the GA meetings like hearing about their weeks, hearing about how well they're doing. Like I've gotten to the point where like I want to go to the GA meetings. Like I want to talk to my sponsor where in the past I was just doing it to like check a box, for my parents or for my family, whatever. But like now it's like I don't want to like I don't want to like ghost the GA meetings. I don't want to ghost my sponsor because I'll feel bad. I like enjoy talking to these people. I enjoy being able to relate to them about this stuff. So like that's a whole nother thing where it's like I have this whole brotherhood of GA and my sponsor that like I don't want to let them down either. So it's
Are
like so many things in my life that are
yeah.
there to support me that are keeping me, on the right track along with myself, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, no. And are you gonna find, like, a meeting in Boston, or are you gonna just drive to your meeting that you're going to now?
So the meeting that I go to now is actually in Newton. So
Oh,
it's actually
perfect.
probably closer. It's probably closer to my apartment than where I live now in Natick. So it
Amazing,
honestly works out. It works out really well.
amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously, it goes without saying, I'm sure John's girlfriend, I'm sure you're amazing. That was just a hypothetical thing. You guys are gonna I'll be at the wedding. I better be getting an
You
invite.
will.
Um,
You will for
but
sure.
but so, you know, I gotta say, like, when you sent me that message and you were like, "I got 100 days clean." I mean, I almost, I'm a crier. I almost cried. I mean, I am so fucking proud of you. I'm so happy for you. Um, and I'm so happy for your family. Like, what's your family like? What are they saying? I haven't talked to them in a while. Like, how are they doing?
Oh yeah, they're obviously over the moon. Like it's almost getting to the point where it's annoying, like how much they're telling me how happy they are for me. Like it's like I get it, guys. Like yeah, I'm doing all this stuff, and obviously it's amazing to hear, and like they're so happy, and everyone wants to hear about how well I'm doing, and also like I want to tell everyone how well I'm doing.
Hell yeah.
Like it's gotten to like in the past, like if someone were to ask me about it, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm fine, whatever, like I'm good. Like wouldn't want to talk about anything because I knew deep down that I wasn't doing well, so I didn't want to talk about it. But now that I'm doing so well, like it's all I want to talk about with people if they ask about it.
Mm,
And it's funny you say you're a crier because I feel like I've become a crier too.
mm.
Like is like with the GA meetings or just like letting it out,
Hell
honestly.
yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
feels so
No,
good. Like I've been trying to do it like every other day, if not every day, just like
dude, I'm
thinking
telling
about
you.
like how great life is, or if I even think about like a bad memory I had with gambling in the past, like and just like crying about it, and like yeah, I feel so much better
Oh,
after,
for
and like
sure. I mean, half the
so
time I'm
much.
crying, it's
Mm,
happy tears. It's
yeah,
great.
exactly.
It's grateful tears. I made it out the
Mhm.
other side. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Even if it's like because of a bad memory, it's like I'm crying because of how happy I am that I made it out, and I'm like
Yeah.
completely changed my life around. So
You
it's
hear that,
like
everybody? It's
it's a
okay. It's okay to cry.
yeah.
It's okay.
Even as a man who loves sports and plays sports, you can
Yeah.
cry.
We love sports and chicks. We still cry.
Exactly.
But no, so last question is,
Mhm.
you know, I think besides Caleb, shout out Caleb, you're the person on the Modern Meeting who's been in recovery for the least amount of time. So, you know all too well that feeling of what it's like to be out there. 4.5 months ago, you were there. What is your message to the person who's listening right now, especially the young person who's listening right now, who is still out there gambling, thinking the way you thought, thinking the way I thought? What's your message to them?
Mhm. My message would be, I'd say there'd be two parts. I'd say one, try a week without gambling. Just try to go a week without gambling. And then after that week, just say, all right, I'm going to go a week. I might go back after, but I'm going to go a week. And then after that week of actually not gambling, think about how your life compares to where you were gambling. So do a week of gambling and then a week of not gambling and see the difference. And if your life is better gambling, then you probably don't have a problem or you're lying. So but 99% of the time if you go a week, then you'll see how much more clear minded and how much better life can be without gambling because it's so hard. Like I've been there so many times. It's so hard to think about anything else while you're gambling. But like if you can just clear your head for a week, it I think can make all the difference. And I think the second part I would say is don't don't try to get help. Don't ask people for help. Don't I guess stop gambling, but don't, ask people for help or get help if you don't truly believe you have a problem. Like you won't fully commit yourself to getting help if you haven't admitted to yourself that you have a problem and you're completely powerless over gambling and that if you continue to gamble, your life will be unmanageable. Like there was several times, while I was gambling where I knew I had a problem and was like getting help, going to meetings, but like I had not, succumbed to the fact that I'm completely powerless over it. And, I just have an addiction that I'll never be able to gamble normally or successfully. So like once you reach that point, and I think this goes back to like gambling being such an insidious addiction that like you'll never reach that point really until you lose it all or until you hit a crazy rock bottom because it's such a hidden disease, such a hidden thing that you can do while everything else in your life is going perfectly. So you're not really going to ever hit that rock bottom until everything comes crashing down, which is the worst part about it. But like you're never truly going to get better unless you admit that you cannot control your gambling. And that's
Yes.
the last thing that I think that I would say. That's my message.
Amen. Amen. John, thank you so much for being on the Modern Meeting. This definitely won't be the last time you're on. I appreciate you coming to the Modern Meeting on Mondays. Hopefully you can keep coming to those. Um, yeah, I mean, I just keep going, man, day at a time, and we'll definitely keep in touch, and yeah, just keep fighting that good fight. I can't I can't believe based on where we were like a few months ago, I can't believe we just had this conversation. We're on the
I know
podcast. It's
it's
just
crazy.
it's amazing. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Sorry for lying to you and
No,
ghosting you in the past, but thanks so much for having me on. You're doing something great here. You're gonna make a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. And yeah, thanks for taking me back as a friend and not telling me to fuck off when I texted you a few weeks ago.
of course, bro. Of course. All right, John. Thank you, bud.
Thanks, bro.
All right, we'll be right back.